Welcome back to Retro Lucha TV. This is your host with the most, El Ojo, and today we kick off the Las Luchadoras Film Series. This movie was released in 1963 and actually has several titles, the most famous being Las Luchadoras contra el Medico Asesino. It also goes by the names The Wrestling Women versus the Killer Doctor, Doctor Doom, no, not that one, leave me alone Disney, and lastly, Rock and Wrestling Women versus the Aztec Ape. Just a side note, there are no great apes in the Americas, unless, of course, you count Sasquatch. Directed by one of the greats of Lucha Libre films, Rene Cardona, and starring Lorena Velázquez as Gloria Venus and Elizabeth Campbell as Golden Ruby. As mentioned in our previous video, Lucha Libre Band, go check that out if you haven't already. Both women were not trained wrestlers. In fact, Elizabeth Campbell was an American-born actress who starred in 18 films, including Operación 67, Las Lobas del Ring, and Las Mujeres Panteras. Meanwhile, Lorena Velázquez transcended the genre and starred in over 130 projects. Some of her most noteworthy lucha films include Las Momias de San Ángel, Santo contra los Zombies, and La Hacha Diabólica. Without further ado, let's start the show. Intro. Newspaper headline. Explains that crimes of El Medico Asesino continue. Not to be confused with the wrestler, técnico, and protagonist of our previous review, El Enmascarado de Plata, this is a different Medico. Cut to a woman in a fancy coat walking down an alley. Two men begin to follow her. Suddenly, a hairy man creeps from the shadows and chokes her. Meanwhile, at the arena, we get our first match of the film. There is a women's tag match. Lorena Velázquez stands on the apron. The crowd from an obviously different arena cheers. The match is nothing to write home about. Gloria Venus comes in for the hot tag and is a hawk on fire. After the match, she goes to the dressing room with her sister, Alicia. Suddenly, we are transported to the villain's lair. The woman who was abducted earlier is on an operating table. It looks like two doctors are prepping her for brain surgery, and they keep showing electrical currents during the surgery. When suddenly, the tall Medico says, "It failed again." The short-masked man says, "Why don't we get someone younger, more athletic?" Pause. These doctors are looking for younger, athletic women for scientific research. I really hope so. The tall Medico says, "I was thinking that too." Kind of feels like the tall Medico is lying. He also says they will try again until they defeat death, whatever that means. There is a growl heard, and they go check on Gomar. Who is Gomar, you ask? After walking down to the basement with a meat hanging from hooks, Gomar, the half-man, half-beast, is revealed. See, El Medico Asesino put a gorilla's brain in a human's body. Why not a human brain in a gorilla's body? So that the beast could have the strength of a gorilla and the intelligence of a man? But what do I know? I'm not a doctor. He has dead fed one of the ribs from the ceiling. El Medico Asesino is surprised he's not intelligent and says he is slowly turning more primitive. Also, in this scene, it is hard to tell who is talking since there is one rib in the middle of the shot. El Medico Asesino goes into the cage, and Gomar, like most human brain men, doesn't want to share his food. Apparently, El Medico Asesino somehow has Gomar hypnotized. It is never explained how, but once he transforms into a full gorilla, El Medico Asesino will not be able to control him. I am pretty sure that is not how brain surgery works. Then El Medico Asesino expresses his evil plan. He wants to put human brains in human bodies, but the human body is fragile. Not sure how that's more complicated than transferring brains between two different species, but as mentioned earlier, I'm not a medical expert. You know, the more this movie goes on, the less I think El Medico is an actual medical professional. Anywho, to circumvent this, he will use female bodies for biological reasons. On some street corner, a newsboy, no, not Freckles from the last episode, says that crimes continue. In a much cleaner lab, Professor Ruiz walks in. And you can tell he is important because he doesn't wear a lab coat and begins touching everything. I wonder if wearing all black is foreshadowing. Gloria Venus' sister, Alicia, talks about how much fun she had at the Lucha Libre arena. Sounds like me at my day job. But the professor, like many of my coworkers, doesn't like lucha. The professor tries flirting and asks Alicia what time she got home. Alicia says 2 a.m. The professor asks if her boyfriend took her, and Alicia says no. There is someone courting her, but she knows how to get home by herself. This is why you don't flirt at work. Then a nosy coworker comments on how she walks alone despite the terror of El Medico Asesino. Until the short assistant Boris says the order has arrived, so the professor hands Alicia the beaker, burnt ends first, and walks off. We get a news narration, which I think is pretty cool. The news guy says, the body of the missing woman was found, with apparent brain injury. Then we are transported to the Secret Service. Some tall, dashing man gives the chief the runaround, while he and a shorter agent discuss who El Medico Asesino could be. Meanwhile, the goofy agent calls his grandma and yells, "Grandma, don't go out!" I was honestly not expecting this since the film is trying to be dark and mysterious. This is where I want to point out two tropes in lucha movies, specifically the Las Luchadoras series. One, the goofy sidekick. And two, although movies may be titled and named after an actor or luchador, they were often second fiddle. They didn't move the plot, which is a shame since it's such a cool concept left unused. Later films fixed this by hiring voice actors and making luchadores part of Interpol or integral to the investigation and our plot, but this definitely took some time. Then appear two men in robes, along with the gorilla man, Gomar. They enter a room with 5 men. They call the main henchman Marcado, which means scarred. The tall hooded man tells them he needs more young women for his experiments. He then tells Gomar the man-ape, they are his friends. You are his friends. You should listen to them. He repeats this 3 times. If Gomar didn't get it the first time, I don't know what would have changed by repeating it 3 more times. Who do we bring now? Some random person? Then El Medico gives a picture of the victim to the henchman. Somehow El Medico has a headshot of the victim. Who knows how he found it, since this is before Facebook. But El Medico tells the men to remember the face while he holds on to the headshot for reasons. Back at the clean lab, the professor says hello to Alicia Floresta, who is still at work at 11 p.m. He insists it's way too late and offers to take her home. Why did the scientist come back to the lab at 11 p.m. if it's too late to work? The professor says Alicia deserves a raise. Does he just want to make sure the lab is empty? Anyway, Alicia says, nah, I have a ride, and rushes out without putting any of the chemicals away she was working with. But it's okay, it's the 1960s, and OSHA wasn't created until the 1970s. And this is Mexico. She says bye to Boris, the secretary, and leaves. Alicia lied. I guess she didn't want to hang out with her boss after work, because she's outside and she immediately gets kidnapped. For those in the know, they actually get picked up by an old school Mexican cab. Not the green VW buggies that became popular in the late 20th century, but the Ford Fairline Cocodrilo taxi. This has nothing to do with Lucha Libre, but it is cool to see. They drive into a police blockade. Gomar walks out covered in steel plates, and the police tell Gomar to call an ambulance. Gomar agrees, but says, not for me, and makes short work of the police. Back at El Medico's lab, the assistant walks in, and Gomar has Alicia Floresta. Scarface says Gomar took on 4 police by himself. While operating, the Medico says, another failure. Then he suggests maybe a robust, athletic woman. We get another headline as exposition. 4 police were taken out, and another kidnapping involving Alicia Floresta. Inspector Rojas asks if she has any family, and the tall agent says, just one sister. We cut to a gym with famed luchadora Gloria Venus. where the short agent is being a perv, looking at all the women. The tall agent tells Gloria the bad news. We get a cool shot of Venus being extra camp and looking at the camera. Gloria accompanies the agents to the morgue, where she cries and the handsome cop hugs her. Back at the lab, the professor retells the story of Alicia rejecting him. He is sad, but does not cry. That's suspicious. We get a shot of evil Medico Asesino telling his crew he needs strong-built women, but doesn't know where to find them. To be honest, same. El Ojo likes strong women, like Zeno, Princess Warrior. Cut to a gym with strong-built women, where we are introduced to Golden Ruby, an American who came to train in all things lucha. Meanwhile, a male luchador comes in and tries to take the only weight in the gym from the women, and pushes one. Probably a bad idea, especially since the girls beat him up mercilessly and dogpile him. To be fair, the gym is a giant room with a mat, one weight, and bars, so I understand why the women don't want to lose what little equipment they have. Gloria and Golden seem to enjoy the misandry and laugh at the male luchador. Inspector Rojas at the Secret Service gets a call and says, "No, I have no news," and hangs up. Then the agents walk in, and the short one says, "This is difficult. The women are all dead, and we have no idea who the killer is." That is literally your job to find out. Back at the locker room, Golden tells Gloria the girls are strong, but she sees sadness in Gloria's eyes and asks what's wrong. Gloria Venus tells her sister was assassinated, while Golden Ruby says, "I can help." Gloria Venus responds with, "Thanks, you're nice," and asks Golden, "Where are you staying?" Golden replies, "At the hotel." So Gloria Venus asks Golden to move in with her after one day of training. Some people sure move fast. Cut to a poster, and match number 2. Wrist lock by Venus, second wrist lock. Knee by Ruda, drops Venus, forearm to the back. Knee, kick. The professor watches from the front row, and the agents walk in and take a front row seat. The short one says, "You're only here to see Gloria." And not sure if this counts as banter, but the tall agent replies, "Shut up, insect." Back in the ring, Gloria wins with 2 arm drags and a weird arm hold. They win! The professor congratulates the girls after the match. Golden Ruby, dressed in 1960s attire, asks the professor, "Did you enjoy the match?" The professor says, "No." Then, Armando Gutierrez, the tall agent, and Chema say hello. Gloria introduces them, and Chema falls in love with Golden. The professor comes in and tells the girls one more thing Alicia said the night of the abduction. She had a new beau. To which Chema responds, "Algo es algo, dijo el diablo." With comments like that, you think he'd be a YouTube commentator. Am I right? The Secret Service says they will look into it. The professor, not wanting to be the fifth wheel, leaves, and Chema invites the girls to dinner. Later that night, the girls sleep in the same bedroom, but in different beds. They hear someone but pretend to be asleep when 2 men break in, so the luchadoras beat them up. There's a funny shot where Venus kicks a guy out of the window, and then in the next shot, she beats him up again, even though he just left. It reminds me of Boy Scouts in the Hood from The Simpsons, Season 5, Episode 8. Ruby wants to go after them, but Venus says it's too dangerous, even though they easily beat them up. Back at the bad guy's lair, they ask the boss, "Why didn't you tell us they were luchadoras?" El Medico Asesino says, "I finally found the perfect specimens, and you guys get beat up? You're useless." Some bosses really don't care. Venus and Ruby call Armando for help, and he brings Chema. They say they looked into her sister's boyfriend. He is not a suspect, but he was sad about the death. That sure is police work. Armando comes up with a genius plan to have the girls get kidnapped so they can locate the base. Meanwhile, Chema puts the moves on Ruby. The girls leave the gym one day, walking down a dark alley, probably Batman's crime alley because it's so dark and windows are broken. Ruby even remarks, "Did you hear that?" And Venus says, "We will surely get kidnapped." As they walk, some car puts on its headlight, and they are unsure if it's the bad guys. And out walks Gomar in steel-plated armor. Armando and Chema look on. Armando sends a radio message, "This is X3. Gomar karate chops the girls, and Armando wants to go save them. Oddly enough, Chema is the voice of reason, and says, "No, we need to see where they take the girls." So they follow the car. Back at the evil lair, El Medico is happy. Suddenly, they get an alert. For some reason, the lab is in a warehouse behind a secret door. Chema wants to leave due to fear, but Armando makes him stay. Chema accidentally knocks one guy out, but when Mini Medico punches Chema, he runs away. Venus wakes up and checks on Ruby while the guys are getting beat up. These are the type of women everybody needs in their life. They see you in a fight and don't ask questions, they just start throwing hands. Now that it's 4-on-4, the good guys win easily. Thankfully, more cops show up and arrest everyone. Newspaper headline, El Medico's gang arrested. It's Boris, his assistant. For some reason, the professor doesn't believe that Boris is El Medico Asesino. When asked where he is, Boris says El Medico and Gomar escaped. The girls are also in the lineup, and before Boris says anything, the chief says they will check to see if he died by natural causes. It turns out a needle was shot at Boris. It could be any of the 11 people in that room. Cut to El Medico? Is this more foreshadowing? Let's find out. Now El Medico only has one assistant, Scar, and he tells them you need more men. At the ladies' gym, some girls, including Carmela Camacho, wrestle blindfolded as Ruby and Venus look on. Armando and Chema walk in and give them communicator watches. Armando tells them never to take them off. The professor calls the police and asks to speak with the Secret Service. Luckily, Armando walks in and answers. Professor Ruiz is happy someone answered the phone as the gang from El Medico have him hostage. The agents go to Ruiz's lab. Outnumbered 2-1, the gang just beats up the cops and takes them as hostages. After they leave, Professor Ruiz makes a phone call. Ruby is spilling the tea to Venus. Venus answers the phone and says, "We're on it." The hooded men go to the evil lair, and El Medico Asesino says to leave them in the death room with Gomar, the man-ape. And El Medico pulls a lever, releasing spikes that push them into the cage with the man-ape hybrid. While driving around, Ruby seems the most sad. By the way, they are not using maps, they are following the sounds on their watch, so they turn a couple of times. They end up at the same lair from earlier, where they beat up the gang, which does make sense, because the cops only arrested the gang. They didn't actually look inside the building. The girls use a crowbar to break in, and when Ruby says, "What if Boris came back?" Venus says, "Para con tus gringadas," which is a polite way of saying, "Oh, you silly foreigner." Anyway, the girls hear the boys scream and let them out of the basement. Armando tells Ruby and Chema to beat up the guys. Upstairs, El Medico waits and beats up Armando. But Venus throws acid in El Medico's face, and the lab blows up. Gomar escapes and saves El Medico. El Medico reveals his face is scarred. Back at the gym, the police say the gym owner can't fight Carmela Camacho. Then we get a big surprise. El Medico is Professor Ruiz. He wants to use Gomar's brain to give Carmela Camacho strength. So they do a brain swap by putting needles in each other's head. Kinda makes you wonder why his previous patients didn't survive. The Luchadora is brought back to life as Vendetta Machina, who has the strength of Gomar. Somehow, she can also listen to orders from a distance, psychically. This is shown when the professor tells her to break a table. I thought she was going to smash the table, instead she flips it. Side note, Vendetta is actually played by Chabela Romero, a legit luchadora. She plays both as Carmela and Vendetta in this film, and as herself in Las Luchadoras vs. La Momia Azteca. In wrestling, she had a storied rivalry against Irma Gonzalez. Who is Irma Gonzalez, you may ask? The famous luchadora posing with a cape from the 1960s. If you've seen the Lucha Libres band video, you begin to understand how Lucha Libre films are lost media piecing together what matches of the time were like. Those two actually had 3 luchas de apuestas against one another. But that is a story for another day. We are interrupted by a news reporter that announces there is a 25,000 USD challenge for the champion. Then El Medico comes in with a better mask and does not speak. He orders her to sign a contract. Golden Ruby tells Venus to be careful, and she gets a bad vibe from Vendetta. Match number 3, and your main event. Gloria has a long entrance, similar to that of The Undertaker. Carmela Camacho comes in, and the match is not that exciting as Vendetta just runs around the ring. During the match, Ruby sees Scar and beats him up. She also found out El Medico Asesino is Professor Luis. Golden Ruby jumps into the match, and instead of ending it, the referee does nothing. Ruby tells Armando that El Medico is Professor Luis, so they chase after him. Somehow he has telepathic communication with Vendetta, and calls for her to show up. She beats up the security on the way out, which was unnecessary since the old man was asleep. El Medico and Vendetta escape via the water tower as a crowd gather. They flash lights on them. Armando tries to talk, but they try to kick him off the water tower while the girls look on. Luckily, Chema is a good shot and eliminates Vendetta and El Medico. They both fall off the water tower. Armando tells Gloria, "Your sister is avenged." Fin. And that was the first in the Las Luchadoras film series. Also, before I let you go, I want to draw the characters in a different model. I want to do them more cartoony, more over the top, but I wanted to get your opinions. Would you like to see them more cartoony, or would you like to see them more realistically? Because the first few movies of this genre, they're mostly men in business suits. Even if they have cool names like Lobo or Dragon, it's people in suits. In addition to that question, how do you guys feel about a lucha meter? A rubric to judge lucha movies based on the heroes, the villains, the cameos, the actions, and something else. Do you guys like the Simpsons references, or should I reference other media? Why does Venus already have 2 beds in her bedroom? Did she know she was going to have another roommate? Was she actively looking for a roommate?